Chapter 1. The Angel. When the pills kicked in, the taste of coffee was on her tongue again. Bittersweet, like that night in Alexander's room. Shivering 70 miles from home, Karen Price pulled the covers to her eyes as the Baltimore street sound slowly faded into a deathly sweet silence. From the balcony, she was watching Alexander West woo Susan Hayward in A Night to Remember when the ear-piercing blast of a trumpet filled the abandoned theater. A magnificent angel, clothed in light, pulsated onto the screen. He lifted an immense flaming sword. Your son is a mighty man of valor. His heart is pure. Lives are touched wherever he goes. And when you are old, Karen, he will bring you comfort beside the sea. Early the next morning, she called her mother. Please, let me come home. I can't do this. You listen to me, Karen Isabel. You will not disgrace your father's memory and bring that rapist child into the world. Haven't we had enough heartache already? Think, Karen, for pity's sake. You've got your whole life ahead of you. Go see Richard. That's all you have to do, okay? Then we can be a family again. You know that's what we all want, isn't it? So we can finally put this awful, horrible nightmare behind us once and for all. But Mother, he's all I have left. Even when Karen was 13, the folks at Skip's truck stop swore she was Daddy's girlfriend. Mother didn't like that he was gone all week. But every Friday night, Ellen Price put on her lipstick and a rouge for the king. Friday was fancy up time and off to the steakhouse on East Prospect. Big Tom liked to flash his pool cue. Karen and Diane liked sneaking sips from his monogram stein. Then the late show at the Rialto, where Alexander West's British charm never failed to make the girls swoon. By midnight, Big Tom and Ellen, eyes aglow, were renewing their vows. The girls were giggling in their room across the hall. Alexander West came to Oxford High in the summer of 1947, right before Karen's senior year. He conducted a drama workshop, gave acting lessons, and directed Double Door, a melodrama. She was perfect, he said, as the unsullied Anne Darrow locked in that creepy old dungeon until her beloved Rip Van Brett finally found the gumption and stood up to his wicked older sister Victoria, grabbing her arm and shaking his fist exactly like Alexander showed him. Rip demanded her release. Could it be any finer? If only Mr. West could stay a little longer, the girls at the Sunday night cast party sighed. Daddy was already halfway to Indy. 12 o'clock, Mother insisted. Not one lousy stinking minute later. The sound of Alexander's voice cooing in her brain. Karen wanted another hour at least. But you didn't cross Mother. At 20 to 12, he offered her a ride, and maybe, just maybe, the slender redhead's heart raced as Mr. West opened the silver Bentley door for her. You're so very gifted, precious love. I only wish my time in Pennsylvania were a little longer. But I do have a little keepsake I'd very much like to give you. He pulled into the motel lot. She followed him to his suite and sipped coffee while he read her a poem about Ares and Aphrodite. What time is it? She yawned, and her eyelids trembled as the ceiling spun, shook, and shrunk. Are you all right, my love? The room was dark, her feet sweaty and her palms tingling as his icy hands removed her shoes. Violins played softly as he tugged on her nylons. His cologne filled her lungs, and his lips bore down on hers as her reason faded. The pillow was cold. It hurt, but she couldn't cry. You are so divine, he said, As she pulled her nylons back on, he dropped her off at 1 o'clock. I shall write you my love. Just where the hell have you been, Karen? She could barely feel the sting of Mother's hand across her cheek. I'm sorry. You've been drinking, haven't you? School started again. The normalcy was welcome, even if Karen didn't want to be a cheerleader anymore. She couldn't stand the phony she beat out for captain, she told her mother. But Diane, a sophomore squad member, knew that this wasn't the reason. All semblance of tranquility ended when the morning sickness began. The doctor said she was 2.5 months along. After that, it was pure hell. Daddy demanded answers. Karen threatened to kill herself. They strapped her to a bed in the hospital. Frightened and confused, Diane told him what happened to Karen after the cast party. Big Tom sped up to Boston, where West was doing a one-man show. He cornered him in his hotel room. The actor pulled out a pistol, but Big Tom plunged a dagger into his throat. A security officer burst in and shot Tom Price. It's all my fault. Mother hates me. Karen thought she'd be in the hospital forever, but Ellen brought her home and held her hand. Poor baby, my poor baby. She handed her 11 20s and 2 sleeping pills and put her on a Greyhound bus late Monday afternoon. The little black boy smiled at her. Finally, she smiled back. He walked over and sat down next to her. He laid his head against her side. A handsome young man followed. Ma'am, I'm sorry. He's a big flirt. He's a cutie. His name's Kenny, and mine's Michael. I'm his dad. And you are? Karen. Where you headed, Karen? Michael asked. To Baltimore. I've got a cousin just moved down from Jersey. Michael told her he lived in Baltimore with his grandmother. His parents died young. Alcohol. Kenny's mother died too, right after he was born, just 17. But his grandmother was righteous. She was anointed. She taught him and his sister the Bible and the piano. He gave her his phone number when they reached the station. Kenny wanted a kiss, and he got his wish. She waved goodbye and threw away the phone number. It was $2.50 for her room at the YWCA. 2 powdered donuts graced the nightstand with a carton of milk and an old radio. A picture on the wall of Jesus wearing a crown of thorns stared at her. Her head hurt, and it was cold. She swallowed both pills. Still mad at them for being so mad at her, like she was the worst person in the whole world, the worst that ever lived. Then she dreamed about the movie theater and that dazzling angel with the flaming sword. In the morning, Ellen shoveled heaps and heaps of hellish guilt all over her frightened daughter, more than enough to send her the 2 short blocks to Richard's apartment. He listened sympathetically. He nodded his head. Yes, she was doing the right thing, brave girl. Everything would be all right. He was a doctor. It was simple. It wouldn't hurt at all. And she'd be home the next afternoon. Best of all, he reassured her, when she was older and the time was right, she'd be able to have children, just as many as she wanted, not forced to have them before she was ready, not now when her life held so much promise. How could that man do such a thing? Karen told him about the angel and what he'd said to her. Dreams can mean a lot of things, Richard explained, having been warned by her mother, that brave and heroic woman, with the courage and compassion to guide her daughter into making the only sensible decision. It really was a simple procedure, a painless injection, safe, sanitary, and the right thing for all concerned. She gave him 10 20s. He handed her a surgical gown and left the room. As she pulled off her skirt and started putting on the blue smock, she felt her baby move inside her. She threw her clothes back on and bolted for the door. Richard was washing his hands while his voluptuous nurse fiddled with some plastic tubing. "Karen, wait, where are you going?" Faster now. Arms pumping all the way, she locked herself in her room and lay in the tub for 2 hours with both hands on her belly. Where would she go now? And what would she say?